Hey, Bubba. What you doing? All right. So we're here today with Majin Buu. And I'm going to demonstrate some of the techniques that I've used to help with his old dog disease, is what they call it. And it's a vestibular issue that causes dizziness and weakness in their back legs. It can make them vomit. They can get sick for several days at a time, not be able to walk. Majin was experiencing those symptoms. He was having weakness in his back end. He was vomiting. He was dizzy. It was a horrible nightmare that went on for quite some time until I started applying some of these healing modalities. And I did have another video that I showed you where I used the crystal healing on Majin. And since that video, I have been working with frequency and, of course, massage. I was also working with massage in that video. But Majin has improved 100%. He doesn't have that problem anymore. It's been probably 4 or 5 months since he has been receiving these treatments, and he's just in great shape. I don't know what to say. His hips are no longer a problem. He no longer has the dizziness and issues that he had before. So some of the techniques that I use with Majin is, I'm going to kind of let him delegate the order in which we do these things, but one of them is working with his fascia. So we all have fascia in our bodies, and it doesn't just sit there on the first layer of your, like under your skin, like a lot of people might think. Actually, fascia is webbed, and it's like a net that moves through all of your tissue and into your organs. And so what we're learning about fascia is that it holds a memory, and it actually sends neurological information to your brain. So when it comes to fascia can be a reason why an animal or a person might be holding themselves in a certain way. And you can think about RBF, and that's somebody that, runs around with a certain look on their face, and they don't even realize that they're running around with that look on their face. And I call it pain face personally, because I'll get that look after I've had a really hard day or something, and I've got myself in like this scrunched up face, and I'm like, oh, my face hurts from making that scrunched up look. And it's fascia that's all just really, really tight, and it has a memory to go into that position. And you can liken this to somebody that might have experienced like a causal type of trauma, where they may have heard of some loud explosion or had something happen that was traumatic and explosive right next to them, and they might have that flinching disorder. And it turns out that flinch has everything to do with the fascial memory, and it can be cured through release. And so what we're going to do is just kind of loosen up his fascia and just work that out and just kind of get him ready for some deeper massage. Okay, so what I like to do here is I like to just kind of move his skin around, just kind of move it around, move that skin around and get it loosened up a little bit. And I do this on both sides. Majin is furry, and he is shedding because it's summertime. So what I do is I do this little scrub with my fingers, and I'm kind of doing this, and I'm moving my hands at the same time, and I'm kind of doing a medium pressure, and I just do that. It's not about digging into any muscle groups or anything. It's about loosening up the fascia, on that first couple of layers. And so like I'll just do this through all over him, particularly on his back, because we know that his back has a lot of stress, and as dogs get older, their hips and their back carry a lot of pressure and a lot of tension. So I would do this all over Majin's entire body, but because he's laying here, I'm not going to get him to move up and get up and start moving around. So I'll do the other side of him later. But, you just want to get in there and just loosen him up, and you can feel the difference from when you first start moving their skin around. You feel that there's another layer under there that's loosened up, and it's just kind of real loose. You can feel it. It's kind of jelly like, and he is nice and loose for that. Yes, he is. All right, so because he's laying here, I'm just going to show you how I use the hertz frequency on him. Maybe not. Stay still. So one of the things about working with animals is they are going to want to move around. They're going to want to, move away from you. They're going to want to, maybe they aren't receptive right off the bat. Never be forceful about anything that you do, or you're going to create some problems with the animal. They won't trust you. So you just have to kind of let them move around. You might want to follow them around. Just take it easy and ease them into everything that you're wanting to do. So Majin's somewhat familiar with these tuning forks, so I'm not too concerned about him moving away or anything, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. But what happens when you apply frequency in the body is that frequency will carry throughout the entire body, because we are water. We're primarily water, like I talk about in my Rules for Resonance videos. If you haven't watched those, check them out. But we are primarily water, so we are going to sympathetically resonate with whatever frequency is around us. And that's why we have, so much going on in our electromagnetic fields and in our own energy, because we have so much going on in the environment around. So one of the things I really like to do with this 30 hertz frequency is I like to start by moving it in and out of the electromagnetic field. And you can actually feel the vibration from this fork. And I'm sure that an animal can feel it probably even more. And it's funny because when I play this across the room, my little dog will jump out and he'll sit on the couch and just look at me. And I think it's because he feels that vibration all the way across the room. So it's pretty interesting to know. They're super, super sensitive to frequency. And unlike humans, animals want to let go of their pain. They don't want to hold on to things like we humans do. So we really just need to facilitate a way for them to release whatever kind of pain that they're holding. And like I said before, that fascia can hold them in a position that's quite uncomfortable. That accompanied with other, muscle groups and things that might be engaged that don't necessarily need to be. So what I'm doing right now is I'm running my fingers down his spine. And so we're looking at, we're just kind of massaging the cervical lumbar here and just kind of moving around those vertebrae, and just putting your finger on either side. Hold on, buddy. Come back. Come here. Come here. We'll do that tail pulling in a minute. Come here. He likes the tail pull too. So let's sit down right there, buddy. Oh, that's perfect. So hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of moving down his back and down these vertebrae right here. And you can kind of just grab a hold of it. Don't grab hard, ever. Just apply a medium pressure. And the animal responds. You can tell what feels good and what doesn't. Be sensitive to that. And watch, their reactions to everything that you do. Now I feel a very, very tight spot here. As we go down, there feels like there's something here, there's a little bit of tension. So we're going to need to help him to release that tension. Majin's a lot of fun to work with. He's very cooperative. And so not all animals will be so cooperative as Majin. But yeah, I just kind of like to go up and down that spine. That is where it's at. And then I come a little further out, like an inch away from the spine, and squeeze the tissue and the muscle that's just outside of that line. And you just take your fingers and run it down, all the way to their hip bone, to where their tail meets, where their tail starts to come off of their body, all the way down. And I give that tail a squeeze at the base, because I think that helps to relieve some of that pressure. So that's one technique I use. And I'm going to go ahead and apply this tuning fork on him. No, don't go anywhere yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because he's a little skittish right now, I'm going to just use the tuning fork without hitting it, without striking it, and it's got no frequency. So I'm just going to run this down his spine like I would if I had struck it. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of lacing it in and around each one of those vertebrae. And I'll just kind of lace it around like a zigzag motion, and just kind of let the fork carry through. It carries through, and you can just kind of let it do the work. You don't have to search for the vertebra, just kind of let the fork go down. And then you can also go back up, but it's a little uncomfortable with long-haired pets, so it might just come back up. So I just start back at the top again and go down. And he seems like he's pretty comfortable with this, so I'm going to go ahead and give the fork a strike. Okay, buddy. Where you going? Oh, I was gonna do your back. Did I make your back itch? Did I tickle you? Did I tickle you? Come here, I'll scratch it for you. Come here, I'll scratch it for you. Come here. Come here, bunny butt. So he's got an itch, I'm telling you. That's why he flipped over to do this. It's because he's got an itch on his back from my tickling him. Oh, did I hurt you? Oh, baby. You hurt him? Yep, hurt you. Oh, I scratched him too hard. Doesn't that feel good? Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, don't scratch, it's good. Okay, I'm gonna do this again. Come here. What are you doing? What are you doing? You sit down. Sit. No, don't lay down. No, don't lay down. Don't lay down. Let's try it while you're laying down then. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the tuning fork on Majin's spine. And so this is a 30 hertz tuning fork, and it's good for helping build bone, and so bone density rather. So some studies that I have read have shown a massive improvement in bone density with 30 hertz of frequency applied for 5 minutes a day. I believe the studies were every day. I think there may have been one where it was twice a week. At any rate, what we're finding is that frequency can be very beneficial and to bone density, which can be very good for a dog as they're starting to get older and they start to lose that bone density and makes their hips and everything else hurt much, much worse. So we're going to apply that 30 hertz frequency to Majin. And normally I would start with just an unstruck fork, but I'm going to go ahead and work with the stroked fork because he knows. He's familiar with it. So I'm working in and around these little vertebrae. So I'm just kind of zigzagging and letting the fork carry down all the way to the base. Then I'll strike it again. And I'll start here at the top. And I'll just kind of let the fork go around each and every vertebra. And I go the opposite way when I come back down the second time. Just let that vibration carry through like that. Another thing I like to do, you can do that several times, whatever the dog will tolerate, is you'll find this point on their hip. And this one's a good one. I love this one, and Majin really likes this one too because it feels so good. And if you do the 30 hertz on yourself, you'll see what it feels like. But the bone actually will resonate that frequency throughout the body. So if you find a good bone that's got a, you know, like this one, it's very well, it's sticking out there, so you don't have any trouble finding it. And so it's right there on the hip, right where we're working. And so there's another one right back here. We're going to put it there. Does that feel good, Boo? I think it might feel good. Okay, and then I find the base of his tail right there, that last vertebra before the tail comes off the body. And I'll just place that fork right there on that vertebra. Yep. Might wiggle it around a little bit until you get on it. Yeah, that feels so good. I feel like applying this frequency at different places, you know, over the duration of 5 to 10 minutes is all your animal really needs in a day. Okay, so they don't really need a whole lot of this frequency treatment. And then when he's in pain, I like to use the 174 fork, and this one is really powerful at helping to relieve pain. So I'm going to strike this one, and this one makes a bit of a chime because it's not a weighted fork. So if you're going to work with animals, you really like to work with the weighted forks. They're going to be preferable because they don't make that ringing sound, which some dogs don't even seem to mind. It's actually surprising how responsive they are to that, plus also the sounds of the crystal bowls. They don't seem to be bothered by that, which you would might think they would, but they're not. So I'm going to show you how to dull down the sound on a tuning fork without weights. So what you'll do is you'll strike the fork. So like I said, you can strike it, touch the side of the fork, and it'll take that high-pitched tone out of it. The vibration is still in the fork. And again, I'll just run it down his spine to help with pain relief. I like to wave this one around his head with the sound, because I do believe some of that chemical reaction happens within the brain. And when you wave the fork over your pet, you want to do it the flat side down like this, so the vibration kind of hits stronger that way. You don't want to go sideways with the fork, because that's sending the vibration out this way. So this way with the fork, and you just can run that along their body. Don't go anywhere. Get that hip real good. And I like to just kind of wave it around the hips. Wait, buddy. Just a minute. And the other fork I wanted to show you is the 528 hertz fork. This one's really got a high pitch to it. And this one is associated with repairing DNA. And there have been some studies on this frequency as well, which are really quite interesting. But this, like I said, is going to help with repair on a cellular level. Maybe I said DNA, but also with repairs on a cellular level. Come sit. Come sit. You never push your dog, push his hind end down or do anything like that, because that can also cause some problems. And I don't know if I showed y'all. I showed y'all a couple of the massages I do, but on the hips here, it's really important to know. You want to get in here right next to the tail and where the leg comes in. And I probably need to have him standing to show you this, but I like to get in there and just kind of rub in that area around that hip. You feel that hip, you just want to get your thumb in there. Don't hurt them, but follow that hip bone. And there's a lot of muscles that tie in there. And you can just kind of work around that hip bone like that. And just squeeze into their thigh. They really like that. And that feels good. Squeezing at the base of the tail feels really good. And like I said, I'm going to apply this 528 frequency. So like we did with the other one, we can quiet the sound if the sound's bothersome to your pet by touching the side of the tuning fork. And then you just pass it through their energy. Majin doesn't mind the ringing as much, so I like to pass it around his ears, around the top of his head, and down his body. Where you going? You laying down? Okay. And I cover his whole. If he'll let me get all around him with it, I just do that. But yeah, I just like to carry the fork real close to him. Trust me, they're able to pick up the frequency without it even being directly applied to them. And sometimes you can watch their fur move around, in response to that frequency. So this was the 528. I used a 528 for the cellular repair, 174 for pain relief and just overall well-being. Kind of it helps to bring in healing and relieve some of the pain. And then the 30 hertz fork, which is all about that bone density, and you really want to apply this one 5 to 10 minutes a couple of times a week. And you can touch them, you can work in their energetic field, whatever's comfortable for your animal, and just take your time with some of this stuff, because they might not be ready for all of it. And like with Majin, we did this in stages. As I learned something new, Majin was there to be my little patient. So he's benefited from all of these modalities. I can really tell you that. And for those of you who saw the way he was standing in my previous video, you'll see that his stance is completely corrected now. So I did want to show you one more technique, or maybe even two, that I use on his hips if he'll cooperate with me in the video. He's now so relaxed. I don't know if I'll... Well, he has determined that the treatment is over. And so I'm just going to end it there with you guys and not bring Majin back into it to end this. But you could see how basically everything works there, and hopefully it'll help you in some way. I wish you all the very best.